Tod Waggner. Tod's just trying to have a normal night. No premonitions, no explosions, no flying debris, just a quiet trip to the bathroom. Unfortunately for him, death's not taking any breaks. It starts small, like it always does. His toilet springs a leak. Nothing crazy, just some water creeping across the floor. Tod barely notices, too busy being, well, Tod. Once he's done with his business, he starts pulling clothes off the line strung above the bathtub. Behind him, the leaking water keeps trailing across the tiles, almost like it's following him. Then it all unravels, literally. He slips on the puddle, stumbles forward, and yanks the clothesline clean off the wall. It wraps around his neck like death personally tied the knot. He stumbles back, flails, tries to catch himself, but his foot lands in the tub, where a freshly spilled cocktail of shampoo and conditioner turns it into a slip and slide straight out of Home Alone. Now he's stuck, tangled in the wire, unable to get any grip. He's kicking, gasping, trying to untangle himself, but the more he struggles, the tighter it pulls. He spots a pair of scissors just inches out of reach on the sink. He stretches, the wire tightens, and slowly, painfully, Tod goes limp. Just as he dies, the water casually slides back across the floor and under the toilet, as if nothing ever happened. Terry Chaney. Carter and Terry are driving around when they spot Alex and Clear chatting outside a cafe. And because Carter's favorite hobby is picking fights with survivors, he pulls over and immediately goes to stir things up. Terry follows him out.
It's like we have a bit of a reunion here.
She pleads with him to stop, sensing yet another testosterone-fueled meltdown in progress. Carter starts mouthing off at Alex again, and this time, Terry's had enough. She pushes Carter, calls him out for being a bully.
You can just drop dead.
Before she can even finish walking away, a speeding bus comes out of nowhere and absolutely obliterates her mid-step. Carter, Alex, Clear, Billy, and Valerie just stand there, mouths open. Terry's final words still hanging in the air, along with bits of Terry. Valerie Lewton. Valerie just wanted a quiet night to pack her things and maybe avoid getting murdered by fate. Instead, she gets a surprise visit from Alex, who shows up like some jittery, doom-obsessed weirdo trying to check on her safety. Not suspicious at all. Naturally, she does what anyone would when a guy shows up like that. Calls the FBI. With Alex hauled off by the agents, Valerie decides it's finally time to relax. She starts making tea, but then spots her school's logo on the mug, which makes her panic and throw the water across the room. Instead, she grabs a frozen bottle of vodka from the freezer. Because, you know,
I'm coping.
She pours the vodka into the same mug without realizing that hot water plus ice-cold booze equals cracked ceramic and, more importantly, drip hazard. But seriously, how do you not notice a crack like that? She holds the mug directly on top of the monitor, then turns her back to pack. Vodka begins dripping into the computer's guts. Sparks fly. Smoke rises. Valerie turns around and leans in for a better look. The monitor explodes right in her face, launching a chunk of glass into her neck. On instinct, she pulls it out, like you definitely shouldn't, and now she's bleeding like she walked off a slasher set. She stumbles toward the kitchen, holding her neck, while behind her the sparks finally catch the vodka trail and light it up. She makes it to the kitchen just in time for the fire to reach the vodka bottle. The bottle explodes, slams her to the floor, and now the entire kitchen is catching fire. After being released, Alex arrives at her house and finds Valerie on the kitchen floor. And that's it. Valerie's done. Alex barely makes it out as the house goes up in flames behind him, officially making this the most chaotic "I'm just checking in" visit of all time. Before we continue, I'd like to point out that only a small percentage of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. So if you end up liking this video, consider subscribing. It's free and you can always change your mind later. Enjoy the rest of the video. Billy Hitchcock. Things are tense. Carter, convinced he's next on Death's hit list, decides to prove a point by stalling his car directly on a set of railroad tracks. Because nothing says "I'm in control" like tempting a high-speed train to do your dirty work. As the train barrels toward them, Alex, Clear, and Billy bail. Carter, unsurprisingly, changes his mind at the very last moment. But oops, he's stuck. Alex pulls off a last-second rescue and yanks him free just before the train demolishes the car in spectacular fashion. Crisis averted, or so they think. Billy, ever the voice of barely contained panic, starts unloading on Carter.
You're dead! You're dead!
Are you sure about that? Yeah, Death doesn't take kindly to being told what to do. As the train passes, a loose chain dangling underneath catches a chunk of shrapnel from the destroyed car. It whips it forward like Death's playing Mortal Kombat and sends it flying straight toward Billy. The shrapnel tears through him from the jaw up, clean and brutal. His body collapses like a dropped mannequin while everyone else stands frozen in total horror. Carter Horton. So, after all the madness, Carter, Alex, and Clear decide they've earned a little vacation. Just 3 trauma survivors sipping drinks at a quaint French cafe. Like Death didn't just nearly fry one of them or turn another into train track salsa. Alex, of course, starts acting twitchy again, spotting new omens around them because his survival anxiety clearly didn't book a return flight. Clear tries to convince him that nothing bad could possibly happen, while Carter...
Or you could still be next.
But Death? Oh, it's still here, watching, waiting, lurking behind a croissant. Alex gets up and nearly gets flattened by a bus, but it swerves, crashes into a pole and launches it into the air. The pole hits a giant restaurant sign, knocking it loose and turning it into a lethal pendulum. As the sign comes swinging down toward Alex, Carter shoves him out of the way at the last second like a hero, or so he thinks. He proudly declares that he was right.
I told you were next. Just skip me.
Death missed Alex. Victory? Not so fast.
So who's next?
Evan Lewis. Evan just hit the lottery and he's riding the high like he's untouchable. Rolls into his apartment carrying shopping bags, cranks up the music, tosses out some crusty spaghetti from his window, a move that'll come back for revenge later, and starts settling into his brand new life of luxury, shirtless naturally. He pops some noodles in the microwave for dinner, totally unaware that a fridge magnet just fell in with them. He also throws some mozzarella sticks in a pan. While dinner's slowly turning into an insurance claim, Evan's checking his messages, which are suddenly flooded with women who've just remembered he exists. Funny how winning millions changes your dating pool. He slips on his flashy new watch and ring, flexes a little,
just wanted to say congratulations,
and then gets interrupted by a full microwave light show. Sparks start flying inside that thing, and in the panic, his ring drops right down the sink drain. Obviously, he tries to reach in after it, but his watch gets stuck because designer accessories and garbage disposals don't mix. Meanwhile, the mozzarella sticks have caught fire. He grabs a towel to smother the flames, and instead knocks the entire pan over, igniting the kitchen. Finally, he manages to get his hand free, snatches a fire extinguisher, blasts it until it runs dry, then sprints to the window. But the window slams shut on him like Death just said,
Not so fast.
He smashes one open with a chair and finally escapes, just as his apartment explodes behind him. On the fire escape, Evan breathes a sigh of relief and starts climbing down. The escape ladder gets stuck, but he kicks it loose and lands safely.
Shit, I'm lucky.
And then... karma. He slips on the old spaghetti he threw out earlier. Yep, that spaghetti. Falls flat on his back, and the ladder comes swinging down, straight toward his face. It stops inches from his eye. Evan sighs, and then the ladder drops that final inch, driving straight through it. Just like that, Evan's lottery luck runs out, and his brain follows. Tim Carpenter. Already nervous, he's strapped in for a cavity fix when pigeons start hitting the window like kamikaze birds. The dentist, distracted, leaves him alone with the gas on. Meanwhile, a plastic blowfish falls into Tim's mouth. Now he can't breathe through his mouth, and inhaling through his nose means more gas and less oxygen. He starts suffocating until a nurse casually strolls in and pulls the blowfish out. Lucky escape, or just a delay. Later, still groggy and walking with his mom, Tim spots a flock of pigeons. That's when Kimberly and Officer Burke show up screaming, "Pigeon!" And Tim runs toward them like a Disney side character. What he doesn't see? A construction worker nearby accidentally nudging a crane lever. A massive pane of glass swings loose above. Tim looks up. Too late. The glass crushes him instantly, ending his brief, "I survived the dentist" victory lap. Turns out Death just doesn't like delays. Nora Carpenter. After witnessing her son get smashed by a pane of glass, Nora just wanted to make it through the day without another disaster. But this is Final Destination, and she stepped into an elevator which, in this universe, might as well be a coffin with calm music. She's standing there with Eugene and a creepy old man who's casually holding a box of prosthetic limbs. Right then, she gets a call from Thomas, who's frantically trying to warn her that
A man with hooks is gonna kill you.
subtle, right? Startled, Nora drops her phone. She moves to walk out the moment the doors open, but the man's prosthetic limb tugs her back. She starts to panic. Eugene and Hook Grandpa try to untangle her, but it doesn't help much. The elevator doors close right on her neck. Her body's stuck half in, half out like a horror-themed magic trick gone wrong. Now it's a tug-of-war between Nora's head and body. The elevator continues to rise upwards until the force finally decapitates her. Kat Jennings. Kat's the kind of person who drives like she owns the road and talks like she owns the planet. So when she's hauling the gang to the hospital in her SUV, you already know something's going to go horribly wrong. And oh, it does. Rescue workers show up and start using the jaws of life to pry her out. She lights a cigarette and tells the guy with the rescue tool to keep it down. The rescue worker just freezes, horrified. Kat's dead. The car's airbag just unintentionally assassinated her. Rory Peters. Rory's that guy in the group who's usually too busy being weird or high to take anything seriously. But for once, he steps up.
Watch it!
He helps out an injured Eugene, saves a random kid from becoming news van roadkill, and even has a rare emotional moment with Kimberly. He tells her, completely sincere, to get rid of his drugs and porn if he dies. Because worse than that is your mom finding that collection. Moments later, Kat gets impaled by a pipe as firefighters attempt to rescue her, and the cigarette she drops rolls into a trail of gasoline, slowly snaking toward the conveniently parked news van. Thomas sees what's about to happen and shouts out to Rory, but Death's not having it. A tree branch drops out of nowhere, forcing Thomas to the ground, and politely reminds him, "Not your turn, buddy." The fire hits the van. It explodes instantly. Big, cinematic, Michael Bay energy, and sends a piece of metal fencing flying through the air. Rory looks up just in time to get turned into a human cubed steak. 1 second he's standing, the next, slice. The wires hit him and carve straight through like he's being prepped for a butcher counter. It's clean, precise. Honestly, that fence should have a degree in surgical engineering. Kimberly and Thomas just watch in shock, like their brains are buffering. Because what do you even say when your friend gets divided into thirds by a fence? Clear and Eugene. Back at the hospital, Eugene is lying in bed. Restrained, recovering, and completely unaware that Death is in the room and doing a little redecorating. First, the air vents seal shut. Then, the oxygen tanks start hissing, leaking pure O2 into the room like Death's prepping a human barbecue. But that's just the appetizer. One of the machines near his bed gets knocked loose. The defibrillators plug starts slowly slipping from the socket. Eugene, struggling to breathe, watches helplessly. For a moment, the defibrillator kicks into emergency mode and brings in just enough airflow to give him hope. That's when Clear Rivers, Final Destination veteran, walking trauma magnet, and professional death dodger, comes bursting into the room. And Death's been waiting for that exact moment. The door swings open, the plug is fully pulled out, and the spark it creates is all it takes. The oxygen-soaked room ignites instantly, erupting into a massive fireball that engulfs them both in seconds. Just like that, Clear's years of cheating Death go up in smoke. Literally. And Eugene's final moments become one of the franchise's most explosive goodbyes. Brian Gibbons. It's a peaceful fall day in 2001. The sun's out, the grill's going, and a handful of survivors who should be dead are enjoying burgers like Death hasn't been creepily following them for months. Brian, young and cheerful, is hanging out at a family barbecue with Kimberly, Thomas, and her dad, aka the squad who supposedly beat the system. Everyone's smiling, relaxed, finally letting their guard down, and right there is where Death likes to strike. As the group chats, Brian brings up the time he almost got flattened by a news van. His dad laughs it off like,
Yeah, that was crazy.
then casually strolls back to check on the grill. The grill explodes like it was stolen from the set of Mad Max Fury Road, and just to really seal the memory in, his right arm lands neatly on his mother's plate. Ashley and Ashlyn. Ashley and Ashlyn just wanted to stay glowing, even if their friends were dropping like flies. Because when Death is clearly making the rounds, nothing says priorities like a quick stop at the tanning salon. They waltz in, totally unbothered, iced drinks in hand, still in full gossip mode. Ashley sets her cup down on the table, directly above the VAC control system for the tanning beds. Ashlyn, meanwhile, decides it's too cold and cranks the heat up to 73 degrees. Because hey,
A few degrees won't hurt.
famous last words. Ashley starts flipping through CDs on a wooden shelf above one of the beds like she's curating the perfect funeral playlist. In the process, she yanks the shelf a little too hard and loosens it. No big deal for now. Meanwhile, that iced drink she left? Yeah, it's sweating more than they are. Water starts dripping directly onto the VAC machine, which immediately starts shorting out. The girls begin to notice things getting a little too hot, and not in the good beachy kind of way. A gust from the vent knocks over a coat rack, which takes out a potted plant, which knocks the CD shelf off the wall and right onto Ashley's tanning bed. Ashlyn tries to get up, but her bed slides into the locking mechanism and somehow locks both beds shut. Death was clearly feeling creative today. They start screaming, kicking, banging on the lids, but no one's around. The heat keeps rising. The plastic starts to melt. Their skin literally begins cooking, their goggles fusing to their faces. It's not even a slow burn. It's a full-on horror rotisserie. Ashlyn's bed starts to rumble. The glass suddenly explodes and flames shoot straight into her face like death just hit the broil setting. Her hand slaps against the glass, then slides down slowly, as both girls are roasted alive in the most violent tanning session ever. And somewhere, Death is probably sipping that iced drink Ashley left behind thinking, SPF 1000 wouldn't have saved you. Frankie Cheeks. After the funeral, Wendy and Kevin head to a fast food drive-thru. Because nothing says mourning like grease and soda. They're mid-order, probably arguing about fries when chaos decides to pull up behind them. Out of nowhere, a giant Heist Pale Ale truck starts rolling down a hill straight toward them. They're boxed in. SUV behind them, beer truck to the side, and some random dude in front who's way too committed to his burger. Kevin's laying on the horn, screaming for this guy to move, and the guy, none other than Frankie Cheeks' professional camcorder creep, just flips them off, completely unbothered by the literal death machine barreling toward them. It's Final Destination, so of course the SUV decides to back up, but by then it's too late. Kevin does the only logical thing, kicks out the windshield. He and Wendy crawl out just before the truck slams into their vehicle. The truck's engine shoots forward with just enough force to turn into a projectile blender. The cooling fan fires up and slices clean through the guy's head like it's prepping a smoothie, spraying blood across the inside of the windshield. When it seems like it's over, the engine sputters one last time and the fan spins again, just to make sure there's no brain left unblended. Romero. Lewis is that guy at the gym. You know the one. Too loud, too confident, flexing in the mirror like he's in a protein shake commercial. While Wendy and Kevin show up to warn him that death has him on speed dial, he's busy brushing them off like they're just traumatized and delusional.
I'm alive because of me.
He's convinced he's untouchable because nothing says safe from supernatural forces like biceps and a bad attitude. He's ranting about his football career, hyping himself up mid-set on a Bowflex machine, and even starts taunting death like it's just another personal trainer trying to stop his grind. Meanwhile, Wendy's getting freaked out because everything around them, the machines, the equipment, the weird gym decor, matches up perfectly with signs from the creepy photo she took of Lewis earlier. Chaos begins elsewhere in the gym. A guy knocks a claw off a random bear statue, because sure, the gym has one of those, and it flies across the room, hits another dude in the face who drops his barbell in shock. That triggers two decorative swords to fall, slicing through the cables holding the weights on Lewis's machine. He goes in for one more lift, unaware that the weights above his head are now basically held up by vibes. Boom. Both weights drop like wrecking balls and crush his skull on the spot. Somewhere, Death is probably nodding like, nice rep. Moral of the story? Don't talk trash to Death while lifting under questionable gym decor. Confidence is cool, but helmets are cooler. Erin Ulmer. Wendy and Kevin head over to the local hardware store to warn Ian and Erin that, hey, Death is still coming. And they're next. But instead of taking it seriously, Ian and Erin basically treat the whole thing like a joke.
Death is fucking complicated.
While the conversation gets more dramatic, Ian accidentally knocks a box of nails off a shelf. Not a big deal, except it eventually lands on a forklift's gear shift. The forklift, now fully possessed by death or terrible safety standards, slowly starts rolling through the store. It crashes into a massive shelving unit and jabs it like it's trying to pick a fight. A hammer falls off the shelf and hits the forklift's controls, which somehow triggers it to start lifting the shelf. It begins rising slowly, presses into a set of ladders, and after little resistance, the ladders finally give out, sending wood and tools raining down like the store's having a clearance sale from hell. Wendy sees the chaos coming and shoves Ian out of the way just in time. Erin, though, gets caught in the middle of it. A wooden board smacks down onto one end of a plank, sending the other end flying through the air. It nails a bag of sawdust, which explodes right into Erin's eyes like a bad TikTok prank. Disoriented and unable to see, she stumbles backward into a stack of boxes, right where Ian had left a nail gun just sitting there, probably thinking, what could go wrong? Now, this isn't your average Home Depot special. This thing goes full Terminator and fires 12 nails into her head and hand before anyone can even scream. So yeah, next time your friend tells you death might be on a revenge tour, maybe don't laugh in its face, especially near heavy machinery and poorly placed nail guns. Perry Malinowski. During the tricentennial celebration, a horse gets spooked and ropes Julie by the neck, dragging her across the fairgrounds. Kevin manages to cut her free just in time and saves her. After Julie just narrowly avoided getting turned into a hoof print, Perry and Amber rush in to check on her, while Wendy shows up mid-panic spiral, demanding to know,
Who was sitting next to you on the roller coaster? Who?
It's the worst trivia game ever. Perry, still in shock, slowly realizes the horrifying truth. She's next. The horse, which was conveniently tied to a flagpole, gets startled by a round of fireworks. Again, because nothing says impending doom like mixing explosives, animals, and metal rods. The horse bolts, the pole goes flying, and lands directly through Perry's chest. It's fast, like really fast. Her body slumps forward and slowly slides down the pole. Her friends, covered in blood, stunned silent. Ian McKinley. So the town's throwing a whole tricentennial fair. Banners, fireworks, good vibes, and death, as per usual. Ian, now fully convinced that he is supposed to be the one to kill Wendy, starts creeping in with full villain energy. He's unhinged, cocky, and just angry that death skipped him. Not a sentence most people complain about. Wendy, doing her best final girl negotiation, tries to logic him down.
You'll save me if you just stay away!
But Ian? He's over it. He's got nothing to lose, except, well, his entire torso. Suddenly, fireworks misfire and nearly blast Ian on the spot. But no, Death's got something more dramatic in mind. The fireworks slam into a cherry picker, which just so happens to be holding up the fair's massive sign. Ian, still shouting,
I'm not dying.
Looks up. Right as the tricentennial sign detaches and comes crashing down, and in one final sassy middle finger to fate move, he flips off Wendy before bleeding out for good. Julie, Kevin, and Wendy. 5 months after the roller coaster disaster that kicked it all off, Wendy is still trying to outrun death. And in classic Final Destination fashion, she ends up right where she shouldn't, on a subway train, just trying to mind her business. But death? Oh, it's already punched her ticket. By some cosmic joke, she runs into her sister Julie, who decided public transit was faster than waiting for her dad's car, and Kevin, who's on his way to a football game. Everyone's all, oh hey, what a coincidence. Except nothing is ever just coincidence when death's in the room. As the train barrels forward, things start to feel off. Subtle signs, like déjà vu with a side of dread. Then everything goes sideways, literally. The subway jumps the rails, slamming passengers around like ragdolls. In the chaos, Julie gets the worst game of dodgeball imaginable, when a runaway train wheel breaks loose and crushes her mid-scream. Kevin is slammed against a cracked window. He's pinned there, helpless as the glass fractures more and more until it finally gives way. Wendy, the last one standing, clings to a pole long enough to watch both her sister and her maybe boyfriend get annihilated. The train tears itself open mid-derailment and ejects her straight onto the tracks, shattered leg and all. She looks up only to see another subway train hurtling toward her. She screams, but it's too late. And then, she's not dead, yet. It was a vision. Kevin sees the look and knows that face by now. He rushes to pull the emergency brake. Wendy and Julie try yanking open the train doors, but it's no use. The screen cuts to black, and all we hear is the screech of steel on steel. Carter Daniels. Carter's the kind of guy who mixes beer, racism, and bad decisions.
Nobody lives forever.
And still somehow thinks he's in control. One drunk night, full of rage and low IQ, he decides the best way to deal with his problems is to roll up to George's house in his tow truck and burn a cross on the front lawn. He blamed George for keeping him from his wife after the car race crash, the moment that led to her death. While he's fiddling with his little bonfire of bigotry, the horseshoe keychain on his rearview mirror suddenly falls and hits the radio. 2 cans of Heist Pale Ale tip over and land perfectly on the gear shift. The truck starts moving down the hill. Carter turns to stop it, but surprise, the doors are locked. Death always locks the doors. In the back of the truck, a gas canister tips and spills fuel all over the road. As Carter screams at his own truck, and suddenly he's being dragged down the street. The chain scraping the pavement sends up a little flare, catches the trail of gas, and turns the street into a literal fire lane. And just when you think it can't get any more brutal, the fire reaches the gas tank. The truck explodes in one glorious fiery finale, launching Carter in pieces. His severed head lands on George's lawn, the worst housewarming gift ever. Samantha Lane. A few days after everything starts spiraling, Samantha decides to treat herself with a relaxing trip to the beauty salon. Hair, nails, some quiet time away from the chaos. Seems harmless enough. But as we already know, death never sleeps. A chain of precisely orchestrated events nearly turned a ceiling fan into Samantha's final haircut. She narrowly avoids the decapitation, but the real danger is still out there. Her kids, who, instead of waiting like normal human beings, are outside throwing rocks at a stop sign. One of those rocks? It doesn't bounce off the sign. It lands quietly in the grass, unnoticed, near a guy just minding his business on a lawnmower. Samantha, all glammed up and freshly styled, exits the salon, generally unaware that she's about to be the main event.
I've got my eye on you.
Was it this eye? The lawnmower outside rolls over that forgotten stone. It fires out of the exhaust like a bullet from a slingshot. The rock rips straight through her right eye and out the back of her head. She collapses onto the floor, dead, as her sons and the staff scream in horror. Andy Kewzer. At the auto shop, things start going south the way they always do in Final Destination. Slowly, stupidly, and with a little bit of bodily fluid. Inside, some guy nonchalantly spits into a can, because hygiene is optional, apparently, and sets it on top of a metal crate. Outside, Andy is chatting with Nick, George, and Lori. The can tips. The spit leaks down and lands directly on a winch. He narrowly dodges it, missing a full-body crush by inches, but death wasn't aiming for squash today, it was going for shred. Because the weight of the van pulls the winch out of its socket, and it whips through the air like a steel boomerang, hitting the top of a CO2 tank. Andy turns around just in time to see the tank rocket straight into his torso, blasting him backward into a metal fence. And then, that fence slices him like deli meat. Wynorski. Hunt's the guy who thinks sunscreen and common sense are optional. So naturally, while Nick is having one of his spooky, icy death-coming visions, this time featuring water, Hunt's just chilling at a country club pool, living his best "I'm too hot to die" life. Nick tries to call and warn him, but just as Hunt picks up, a kid blasts him with a water gun, shorting out the phone. Hunt does what any mature adult would do, snatches the water gun from the kid and chucks it onto the pool's control box because, safety first. And then everything goes downhill. The gun falls, hits a lever, and suddenly the pool drain kicks into full soul-sucking mode. Meanwhile, Hunt's lounging, unaware that death just activated vacuum from hell mode under him. Then, out of nowhere, a golf ball smacks him, knocking his precious lucky coin into the pool. As Hunt dives, the drain grabs him, and it doesn't let go. He thrashes, he screams underwater, but it's too late. The suction keeps building, and after a few agonizing moments, Hunt is pulled in, the wrong way. Let's just say the drain wins. His organs get yanked out through the worst possible exit and are fired out of a pump like death just hit the jackpot on a meat grinder. And yes, the lucky coin comes out with them because death has a sense of humor too. Jonathan Groves. Jonathan's hanging on by a thread in a hospital bed, banged up but alive, for now. After everything that's happened, you'd think a hospital would be the safest place left. But this is Final Destination, so no. Upstairs, an orderly leaves a tub running and walks away like it's someone else's problem. Water starts to spill, seeping through the floorboards, slow and steady. Down below, Jonathan's ceiling starts to leak. The help button? Short-circuited. Every drop of water feels like a warning, and Jonathan knows it. He's in pain, bleeding, and now crawling across the floor. Then, just when he's almost clear, the ceiling gives out and the entire tub crashes through and lands directly on top of him. Nick and George show up just in time to witness the mess. Too late to help, too early to unsee it. George Lanter. After failing to save Jonathan from his surprise bathtub finale, George and Nick step outside the hospital, shaken but still moving. The plan? Find Lori and Janet, regroup, and maybe try not dying for at least 5 minutes. But it's quiet. Almost too quiet. An ambulance,
Ironically.
slams into George at full speed, turning him into a human crash test dummy. One moment he's walking, the next he's modern art on the pavement. Nick, Lori, and Janet. 2 weeks after surviving collapsing theaters, car crashes, escalators from hell, and more foreshadowing than a haunted novel, Nick, Lori, and Janet decide to grab a coffee. you know, relax, chill, and have some fun. They meet up at Death by Caffeine, which, let's be honest, should have been a red flag right there. While Lori and Janet chat like nothing ever happened, Nick can't shake the feeling that something's still off. The signs are everywhere. Symbols, reflections, eerie coincidences. He suddenly realizes the truth. This whole survival streak was never the real plan. Death just needed them to land right here, in this exact spot, at this exact moment. As he starts to explain, a scaffold next to the cafe wobbles, then crashes into the street.
What was the plan from the beginning?
A truck swerves to avoid it, but ends up barreling straight through the cafe window. Janet is caught beneath the truck's front tire. Her spine snaps like dry spaghetti, ribs crushed in an X-ray-worthy splatter. Lori is thrown backward into a steel support beam. Her neck whiplashes so violently it severs everything inside. Nick's launched into the wall like a rag doll. Skull cracks. His body slumps to the floor, bleeding out as his teeth scatter across the tile like morbid confetti. Just like that, game over. And this cafe special? Triple shot, full body annihilation. Candice Hooper. Candice really didn't want to be at the gym. And honestly, can you blame her? A bridge just collapsed. Half her friends are dead. And now Peter's dragging her back to practice, like everything's totally normal. She finally gives in because, yeah, nothing heals trauma like stretching and floor routines. Once they get there, it's already miserable. It's hot, the air feels like soup, and she's clearly one bad mood away from walking right back out. She asks her coach to fix the AC, and eventually someone does. Problem is, when that AC kicks on, it doesn't just cool the room. It starts rattling like it's held together with hopes and tape. A single screw shakes loose and drops directly onto the balance beam. Just sits there, innocent looking. But as we all know, in Final Destination, even household dust can be fatal. Candice finishes her routine on the beam and doesn't notice it. Super close call. She moves over to the uneven bars while her teammate, Porter, hops up next. Mid-cartwheel, she steps right on the screw, screams, and eats Matt. In the process, she knocks over a bowl of chalk. The gym's industrial-sized fan, which definitely should not be allowed near airborne powder, blows it straight into Candice's face while she's still flipping through her bar routine. Completely blinded mid-swing, she loses grip, flips awkwardly, and slams into the ground. And this isn't just a bad landing. Her body folds in a way that should never happen outside of an origami class. Spine snaps, legs go the wrong direction, and she dies instantly right there on the floor. Isaac Palmer. Isaac shows up to the Ming Yun spa with the same charm he probably uses in HR meetings, which is to say, none.
Erotic massage.
He immediately starts hitting on the poor receptionist, and she, very understandably, decides she's had enough. Instead of kicking him out, though, she takes the petty high road and sends him to get acupuncture from an elderly woman who clearly takes her job very seriously. He walks into the room, sees the Buddha statue, and decides it's a great time to be culturally disrespectful, rubbing the belly like it's a slot machine and making jokes. Big mistake. But Isaac's not the kind of guy to read the room, especially when it's filled with open flames, incense smoke, and breakable furniture. His phone gets taken away and placed way too close to a lit candle. Ow! The masseuse then proceeds to absolutely manhandle him like she's training for a wrestling match. Every move she makes sounds like a table joint giving up on life. And to be fair, it kind of is. Once the needles are all in and Isaac's looking like a porcupine in a towel, she leaves him to relax. Instead, an incense coal drops, igniting a parchment nearby. Isaac sees the fire, panics, and flails off the table, which immediately collapses. He hits the floor hard, needles going deeper, but it's not over. A giant bottle of alcohol tips over and soaks both him and the floor, just waiting for someone to do something stupid. Phone starts vibrating, slowly shimmying the candle toward the edge of the shelf like it's had enough of this man's entire existence. The candle drops. Fire meets alcohol. Boom. Flames. Isaac scrambles backward into the wall, burning needles still in place, face full of panic, until the fire suddenly stops just inches from him. He lets out a breath. For 1 second, he thinks he's made it. And then the Buddha statue he mocked earlier comes crashing down like it's got a personal grudge, smashes straight into his head, and turns it into instant soup. Olivia Castle. Olivia decides she's finally over glasses.
I don't want to miss anything.
Because clearly, during a week when death is literally stalking her, and all her friends are dying in freak accidents, Now seems like a great time to voluntarily get a laser pointed at her eyeball. She's strapped into the chair like she's about to be interrogated by Skynet, her eyelid pried open with what looks like medieval dental equipment. She's clearly freaking out, gripping a teddy bear like it's emotional support for adults. Unfortunately, even the bear's not holding it together. One of its eyes pops off and rolls onto the floor. Meanwhile, the eye doctor steps out for literally a minute to check some missing paperwork. And that's all the time Death needs. The water cooler next to the laser machine bubbles like it's possessed, tips Olivia's cup, and spills water all over the power outlet. The machine starts sparking and twitching, like it's trying to come alive, and just as Olivia tries to hit the emergency stop, she accidentally knocks the whole panel to the floor, which naturally hits the on switch instead. The laser fires straight into her eye like it's ready to deep fry it. She screams, tries to shield her face with her hand. Bad idea, because now the laser scorches through her hand and keeps blasting her eye again for good measure. Meanwhile, Sam and Molly show up in the lobby just in time to be told everything's totally fine, which is weird, because Olivia is definitely screaming like someone's microwaving her face. Before they can get to her, Olivia somehow breaks free from the head clamp and stumbles off the table, still in total pain, still half blind. She tries to make it to the door, but remember that teddy bear's eye from earlier? She steps on it, in heels of course, slips, stumbles forward, and crashes right through the giant window. 4 stories down, straight onto a parked car like a human meteor. And just to really drive it home, her one undamaged eye pops out, rolls into the street, and gets run over. Roy Carson. So we've got Nathan and Roy here. After a not-so-subtle jab shows up in the factory's messaging system, tensions run high. Nathan's already on edge, and Roy's in full I don't need anger management mode. While the two argue mid-catwalk, Nathan notices something a little more important than Roy's trash talk. A massive lifting hook swinging their way. Nathan, being the only one with functioning survival instincts, tries to get them both out of the way. Roy thinks it's a fight. Instead of moving, he shoves back. He just barely misses getting skewered by a pole below, only to land face first on the hook, which impales him clean through the skull, like he's today's fresh catch at a meat market. Dennis Lapman. So after Nathan accidentally gives Roy a DIY lobotomy with a giant hook at the factory, Peter, Sam, and Molly show up like it's a company picnic. While everyone's still processing the surprise decapitation, Peter casually drops a theory. Maybe Nathan just inherited Roy's lifespan like it's a Costco membership. Sam's trying to make sense of Death's next move when Dennis storms in. Full middle management energy, ready to yell at someone. He's not even concerned about the whole guy just got skewered situation. Dennis is here to talk policies and procedures like
nothing's on fire.
Unfortunately, something is on fire, metaphorically at least.
It was what?
The vibrations send the wrench flying right into a spinning belt sander, which launches it like a bullet. It is hurled at Dennis's face, killing him instantly. Peter Friedkin. Peter shows up mid-date like the worst third wheel imaginable, with murder on his mind. His plan? Take out Molly and steal her lifespan to beat Death at its own game. But while he's searching for her in the kitchen, Agent Jim Block shows up.
Peter, he has a gun.
Peter doesn't hesitate. He shoots Jim dead and accidentally inherits his lifespan instead. Problem solved? Nope. Peter's paranoia kicks in. Molly saw everything, and loose ends aren't welcome. He lunges at her, firing the gun. But Sam, realizing his girlfriend is about to be murdered, intervenes. Peter knocks him out cold, grabs a knife, and slowly approaches Molly, channeling full-on scream energy. But Sam's had enough. He grabs the nearest oversized skewer and drives it straight into Peter's back. He drops dead, and with that, Sam inherits the stolen lifespan, leaving Death foiled for now. Sam Lawton. 2 weeks after surviving bridges, premonitions, gymnastic catastrophes, and enough warning signs to fill an OSHA handbook, Sam and Molly finally decide to get out of town. A fresh start, new city, new memories.
Are you kidding me? You're gonna make me sit in the middle seat?
And what better place to go than Paris, the city of love, and apparently death. They board the plane, settle in, and for about 5 seconds, everything feels normal. That is, until Sam glances a few rows ahead and sees 2 guys getting into it. Some kid named Alex and a dude with serious anger issues. Security shows up, kicks them and a few others off the flight, and Sam's like, huh, weird. And then it hits him. Not the explosion, but the feeling. That creeping sense he had back on the bridge. Yeah, it's back, and it's not subtle this time. Even the flight attendants getting questions from nervous passengers, casually explaining that some kid just had a meltdown because of a vision. Totally fine. Definitely not alarming at all. And right on cue, the left engine bursts into flames like it just remembered what movie it's in. The side of the plane rips open, chaos erupts, and Sam tries to hold on to Molly as everything is being sucked into the sky. But this isn't a rom-com, and there's no dramatic escape. He loses his grip, and just seconds later, the plane goes full fireball. Sam's final moment? Getting incinerated midair, trapped in the one place you really don't want to be when death is trying to finish what it started. It's fast, brutal, and honestly kind of poetic, because while Sam thought he'd escaped fate, he just ended up exactly where it all began, back on Flight 180, in the seat no one should have been in. Nathan Sears. Weeks after narrowly escaping his own demise and accidentally sending Roy to the afterlife instead, Nathan is kicking back at a local bar. It's a quiet night, well, as quiet as a memorial party in a dive bar can be, and he's finally starting to feel like maybe, just maybe, he got out clean. Then he meets John, a co-worker with the worst timing in human history. Mid-conversation, John casually drops the bomb.
Turns out Roy had an enlarged blood vessel in his brains.
Translation? Roy was going to die anyway, which means Nathan didn't really take his place, which means... Out of nowhere, a massive piece of landing gear from the disintegrating plane tears through the roof of the bar like a cosmic mic drop. The gear crashes directly down onto Nathan, and because Death loves a bit of spectacle, his severed hand flies straight at the screen like one last wave goodbye. Erik Campbell. Iris has spent years off the grid, buried in conspiracy theories, omens, and a book that looks like it was bound in paranoia. But now, with Death clearly back on its nonsense, she's doing her best to warn her family, particularly Stefani, who is very much not in the mood. Stefani's convinced it's all just anxiety and bad dreams.
You know, I'll come back and I'll visit. No!
As Stefani storms off, Iris grabs the book and rushes after her. And this is a big deal. Iris hasn't stepped outside in years. But the door creaks open, and a gust of wind hits like Death just clocked in for the shift. The tin cans hanging on the porch rattle their final warning. She stops, takes it in, and somehow knows this is it. Still, she presses forward. Iris catches up to Stefani and shoves the book into her hands like she's passing off a cursed football. Stefani protests, still not buying into any of it. So Iris, clearly done being ignored, tells her to step back, turns to face the wind, and basically dares Death to prove her point. Her last words?
Seeing is believing.
And Death's like,
Say less.
A sudden gust knocks a rusty weather vane loose. It slams onto a fire extinguisher which erupts like a cannon, launching the vane straight into Iris's mouth and killing her instantly. Stefani, now covered head to toe in her aunt's blood and holding the very book she didn't want, finally starts to understand. Too late, of course. Howard Campbell. Ah, family gatherings. Sunshine, laughter, drinks, and one long, ridiculously overcomplicated death setup. Howard's hanging with his loved ones at a backyard get-together, and everything looks perfectly harmless. Bobby's stacking glass cups. He sets one near the edge and it slips, crashing onto the counter. One tiny shard takes a leap of faith into the cooler and somehow ends up in Marty's drink. No one notices. They're too busy toasting to family and ignoring every single red flag around them. Erik casually places his beer bottle on top of an outdoor fireplace, and Marty's about to sip on his shard smoothie. Right before he does, Bobby invites Howard to jump on the trampoline. Marty sets his glass down to cheer.
Wait, stop!
Darlene spots a rake under the trampoline and moves it off to the side, directly next to a pile of other dangerous gardening tools. Then Brenda walks by and plops a bowl down on the outdoor fireplace, knocking Erik's bottle off. It hits the garden hose spout just right, turns it on, and the hose inflates like a balloon animal. The added pressure causes the nearby tools to start shifting like they're lining up for their part in the execution. Just as Stefani shows up, Howard hops off the trampoline to greet her. Bobby goes full acrobatic mode and breaks through the trampoline. The tower collapses, hits Marty's chair, and spills his drink, the one with the glass shard. He yelps, stumbles backward. The rake, Darlene helpfully moved earlier, tips over and smacks the power button on a nearby lawnmower. Howard tries to brush it off, still trying to save face, but face is exactly what he loses. He falls and the lawnmower rolls straight over his head. His family turns just in time to witness Howard's face get turned into yard mulch. Julia Campbell. Julia just wanted a peaceful jog, a little fresh air, a little cardio, nothing dramatic. As Julia runs down the street, two kids nearby are playing soccer. One of them accidentally kicks the ball into her head. She falls into a trash can, which is then lifted by a garbage truck and dumped into the compactor. Talk about trash day. Stefani, Charlie, and Erik hear the chaos and go sprinting after the truck. Stefani manages to climb up the side as Julia crawls helplessly toward the opening of the loading hopper. She grabs her cousin's arm, pulling for dear life. Meanwhile, Charlie and Erik manage to stop the truck by cutting it off, but the sudden stop sends Julia backward into the compactor. The machine crushes her lower skull and arm. Stefani ends up holding Julia's severed limb while the rest of her cousin gets flattened. Erik Campbell. So Erik and Bobby are in a hospital, casually snacking and plotting the most unhinged plan ever. Cheat death by stopping Bobby's heart with peanuts and reviving him.
Well, see, I got an idea, but it's a little nuts.
Because if dying temporarily worked for someone else, surely it'll work again. And definitely won't go wrong in a room full of high-powered medical machinery and zero supervision. Erik leaves to grab a wheelchair, and while he's gone, Bobby notices the lights flicker on, gives it a huh, and just kind of goes with it. Erik comes back with the wheelchair and explains the plan. Eat the peanut snack, sit in the chair, stop breathing, get resuscitated, and boom, cheat death. Easy, right? Bobby agrees, but only if Erik promises to take care of Paco. Erik's like,
Yeah, of course.
Bobby eats the snack, and nothing happens. Erik's starting to panic, but then Bobby starts choking. He fumbles for his EpiPen, collapses by the door, and Erik's yelling at him to get back in the chair like that's going to fix anything. Meanwhile, Death's plan is fully kicking in. Erik's phone suddenly launches toward the MRI's override button. One by one, Erik's body jewelry starts violently ripping out. First his ears, then his nose, then his nipples, and then... As Erik screams in agony and regret, the wheelchair slams Erik right in the torso, bending him backward as if he were mid-performance in a horror-themed Cirque du Soleil. The magnetic force keeps pulling. He dies, folded in half, crushed and skewered, with the kind of "what just happened" energy that defines the entire franchise. Bobby Campbell. So Bobby's just trying to be alive, which, in Final Destination world, is a full-time job. The good news? Bobby's got a peanut allergy. So Erik's totally foolproof idea? Trigger Bobby's allergy just enough to stop his breathing, then revive him, and voila, new lease on life. They hit the vending machine and Bobby picks his salted doom. But the machine eats the snack. Erik shakes it. Bobby joins in. They get the snack. They head into the MRI room and where everything quickly goes downhill, leading to Erik's death, which I covered previously. Now it's Bobby's turn. He's still struggling after eating the peanut snack, gasping for air. He crawls to Erik's crumpled body, manages to grab the EpiPen and stabs himself. Victory, right? He's alive. Wham! That random spring from the vending machine? Yep, it finally finishes its journey, flies in like a metal dart from the heavens, and drills itself into Bobby's forehead. Darlene Campbell. The crew arrives at Iris's cabin, but Death's not waiting for a warm welcome. The gate's locked, time's ticking, and Stefani knows it. So she does what any desperate Final Destination survivor would do. Rams the gate full speed. It works, sort of. Inside the car, Stefani's seatbelt predictably jams. She tells Darlene and Charlie to run for it, putting herself on hold to make sure they're safe. They sprint toward the cabin. A hanging potted plant drops just right and flips on the stove, leaking gas and setting the stage for a home-cooked fireball. Outside, a busted light sparks, and guess where that spark lands? Right into the cabin, lighting the fuse. Darlene, in a rare heroic moment, shoves Charlie away at the last second as the cabin explodes. She's thrown, injured but alive, and finds Charlie trapped under rubble. She digs him out, burned and bleeding, but still mom-strong enough to give him one last pep talk. He hesitates to leave her, but Darlene, classic final act martyr, tells him to go save Stefani, promising she'll hold on.
I'm gonna stay alive as long as...
She doesn't. Right as the music swells, a damaged lamppost just barely hanging on from the earlier blast gives up. Stefani and Charlie, 1 week after surviving what they thought was their brush with death, Stefani and Charlie are finally settling back into normal life, which in this universe means they've got about 10 minutes left. They're helping Charlie get ready for prom. The two head over to pick up Charlie's date, Jenny Reddick, and meet her dad, who also happens to be a doctor. They chat, laugh, and then Stefani casually drops a bombshell that Charlie brought her back from the dead. Mr. Reddick, confused but smiling, explains,
Well, technically you weren't dead.
Just unconscious. Stefani and Charlie lock eyes, both realizing the same terrifying thing. Death's not done with them. Meanwhile, just a few blocks away, an old woman from the hospital buys lemonade, drops a penny, and that innocent coin rolls onto the train tracks, jamming itself perfectly between the rails. Train 0513 derails moments later, carving a path of destruction straight through nearby houses. Stefani sees the signs. The air shifts. That familiar unease creeps in. And she knows. She grabs Charlie and shouts for him to run. The siblings sprint away as the wreckage plows through the street behind them. The train finally screeches to a halt. They stop. They breathe.
Oh my God, that was close.
One of the train cars, loaded with logs, jerks violently forward. The pressure shifts and several logs are launched through the air like giant wooden missiles. Before either of them can move, they're both struck. The impact is instant and unforgiving. The final destination hits hard.